What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you so much, as always, for listening to the show, for watching. However you are taking this in, I do very much appreciate you. If you're not yet subscribed or following, please go ahead and do that. Again, video side, audio side, doesn't matter. Just make sure that you are locked in so you can get notifications when new episodes drop, which is pretty much every weekday. Big shout out, sponsor, as always, the law office of William Mattar. Heard in a car, call William Mattar, 444-4444. Call William Mattar today to get the compensation that you deserve. This is our Thursday podcast. I had to double check there. On the video side, I know we are live here Wednesday night around 9 p.m. or so to record this show. I'm joined by my good buddy, broadcaster, sports media guy, and someone who's going to, quite frankly, carry a lot of this show tonight, man. Steve Bermel, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
What's going on, Pat? Exciting that the Sabres got 4 in a row. The Bandits won both this weekend, which put them back into a playoff spot. They were kind of on the outside looking in. So it was a hell of a weekend for them. Our GM said outright, if we don't go 2-0, we're not keeping this team together. And now that they did go 2-0, they're very similar to where they were 2 years ago. They were 5-6, and everyone was kind of counting them out, and they won the championship. Not saying that's going to be what happens this year, but that 2-0 weekend was huge for them. So they're right back in the thick of it.
I want to kind of lay out a little bit for the people who are going to be listening to this, what we're doing. We're going to talk about the Sabres, of course, in two parts. We're going to talk about a team that is just absolutely electric, an atmosphere at the arena on Tuesday night that was just absolutely electric. We're going to talk about the team. We're going to talk about a move, maybe a move that was rumored the day before. It has been a wild, chaotic off the ice for the Sabres over the last 24 hours, up to literally the minute as we're streaming and recording this show. So we'll hit on that a little bit later on. We'll talk some Bills as well. My buddy Tim Graham put out a report on Wednesday that said that Connor McGovern's probably gone. And that surprises me a little bit. He said that Brandon Beane has not spoken with either Connor or his agent since exit interviews right after the Denver game. That's a little bit surprising. So Connor McGovern certainly feels like he's gone. We'll talk about that. Alec Pierce looks like he's going to hit the market. He will probably be the most coveted and certainly the most overpaid, unrestricted wide receiver free agent out there. Should the Bills take a big, aggressive swing big, and try to lock in Alec Pierce? We'll talk about that in a little bit. Old friend Stephon Diggs is free to sign with the Buffalo Bills or 30 other teams in the NFL because he got cut, or he's getting cut, I should say, by the New England Patriots. That was announced on Wednesday as well. And I got to let people know here. I'm going to do my best. Again, I'm glad I got Steve here. Let me give you some props, Steve. You're I don't have to ever over prepare for you. Like, how do I say this where people will understand what the fuck I'm even talking about here? Sometimes when I have a guest on, I really go, and sometimes it's my fault. I just go really overboard with notes and bullet points. And, I got a half a novel in front of me, and I don't even get to a third of them anyway. But I feel like I over prepare. When I have you on, between the Bills, the Sabres, if we're going to shoot banners or just social media or sports media stuff, you're well-versed. You know what you're doing. You're very well-balanced. And that's the good thing because I am fucking exhausted right now. I've barely slept in a day and a half. This might be all over the place, so you're going to at least at times carry the team. And I know you're up for that as well. So I really appreciate you being on the show with me today as well. Steve Noble in the live chat. Let's start out here. Never would have thought the Sabres' odds of winning the Cup would be higher than missing the playoffs.
Huh.
It's a good way to start. I think there's only one way to start this show. Let's start with what maybe is a trade. Very, how should we say it, Steve? Premature reporting by NHL insiders. A trade was agreed to in principle as we're recording this anyway. The Buffalo Sabres, the St. Louis Blues. Apparently, the Sabres would be sending a first-round pick and last year's first-round pick, Merca, to St. Louis for Colton Parayko. It's a big deal, and he's literally a big guy. However, and I'm checking Twitter every few seconds here while we're on the air, he has not agreed to he's got a full no trade clause. So this deal's not done, and it may not get done. Where do you want to start here? Let's talk quickly, because we won't spend a whole show doing this, because if the trade doesn't happen, we're kind of spinning our wheels here. Let's talk on the premise that both the trade happens and that it doesn't, okay? I want to get your take on your opinion if it goes down. Now, there is salary that might be retained by St. Louis, maybe, that we don't know about. The price seems kind of high for what the Sabres are giving up, but I got a take on that as well. I want to get your thoughts. Everything that's going on here on Wednesday, a maybe trade, a pretty significant trade for the Buffalo Sabres. What are your initial thoughts as we kind of are here up in limbo?
Well, it started with Robert Thomas, too, yesterday, because that went crazy.
Yes.
And there was all kinds of reports that was close. I can almost appreciate Kekalainen not coming up to the price if it wasn't right. He didn't panic and say, oh, my gosh, we got to get this guy and panic and give up more. So if that's what happened, I'm glad. And the number of people that think that the Sabres are trading top four, I've talked to some of my Sabres media contacts that are in the know more than me, and I heard from them, now they could be wrong, but I've heard from them that Power's not even an option to get traded. Like if they're asking about Power, it's no deal. And I've have, sources, but people that I talk to that are like, no, that's never going to happen. And social media is a buzz that Power's gone. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? First off, he is a top 4D in a D-core that's playing incredibly well right now. And the drum that you keep beating, Pat, and I agree with you, he's playing better. Like he is playing head and shoulders better than he was previously. He's contributing. He scored last night. We're recording Wednesday, so he scored Tuesday night, but he also played pretty well. He blocked a shot that prevented a goal. He had his stick in front of Eichel all night. But all that said, I love the idea of adding someone like Colton Parayko, because 86 career playoff games, and there was a joke that it might be more than the entire Sabres roster combined. That ends up not checking out because Greenway has like 20 and Tuck has like 80 or something. But adding 86 playoff games to a team that is 99% to make the playoffs seems wise, which is why I said a player like Colton Parayko, 32 years old. My buddy sent me his numbers. He has like one goal. He's a -14 playing for St. Louis. This guy is a stay-at-home defensive defenseman. Believe he just played for Team Canada in the Olympics. A big, mean dude with a long reach who doesn't suck with the puck on his stick. This is exactly the guy I want them to add. And I think we talked about this. If they're not going to add somebody, it's a possibility they're going to roll into the playoff run and start the playoffs with Metsä and or Bryson playing every game. And it's not shitting on Metsä and Bryson, but who would you rather have back there? Zach Metsä or Colton Parayko? It's no question that you would rather have Colton Parayko. It's a no-brainer. My struggle with it is the price. I don't care about the first round pick. There was a graphic, Pat, I don't know if you saw it, the number of first round picks that have been traded in the last like 8 years and what players they became, or since 2015, which is 11 years. There's like 3 names on there that even panned out to be good NHL players. I don't mean like there's names on there of like who? Like one of the picks that was traded was like Jacob Bernard Docker. Fine. He's an okay player, but he's not. You think about a first-round pick in the NHL, they are not studs like you have in other sports. And GMs overvalue their first-round picks. Trade it, because hopefully the Sabres are picking pretty late this year. And who are you going to get it? Hopefully 20th or 22nd or whatever. Trade it. I have zero issue with that. My struggle Radim Murka is one of my favorite prospects that they have because the Sabres haven't had a beefy, angry, large defenseman since maybe Risto and Zadorov. They were in the same draft. Risto, struggled on a bad team. I don't even want to hate on him. He was playing 25 minutes a night on a team with the worst defense in the league. Zadorov couldn't show up on time. The Keon Coleman issue, couldn't get his professionalism figured out. He's got a mean streak, but Murka is the first big-bodied, nasty, in-your-face defenseman that they've had as a prospect in a long time. But guess what? That's how Parayko plays. Now, Parayko's 32. The other thing is my favorite prospect probably before Murka was Savoy. And when they traded him, I was like, oh, man, he's really not been very good. They didn't lose much by trading Matt Savoy. So, Murka's still probably a few years out. The hardest part for me was giving up Murka. If it doesn't happen, I think Jarmo's still going to push for somebody. It sucks that someone like Mackenzie Weegar already moved, but there'll be other defensemen out there for him to be on. But maybe the oddest part of all of this Pat, is how we have as credible sources as Darren Drager saying this is a go, and what, they didn't fucking ask Colton Parayko yet? How does that happen? How do you get to a point where it's like the deal is done, a first and Murka are going to St. Louis with Parayko coming back, and I respect Darren Drager, this isn't a dig on him. How does that happen if Parayko's not on board?
It's a great question. I'll say this. First about the player. I'm not going to sit there and act like I know a ton about him because I don't. I'm pretty open about it. I'm balls deep with following the Sabres. I am not the same with following the league. It's kind of like, it's the opposite of the NFL. Like I could talk Bills, I could talk 31 other teams in the NFL. I feel like I can anyway, reasonably well. I can't say the same thing with hockey. I know this. The dude ain't a bum. If you want, you're not playing for Canada and the Four Nations. And I did see, and I remember when it happened, and then I kind of forgot about it, but I saw a video flown around on Wednesday night, and I forget, made me remember, he beat the shit out of JT Miller in the Four Nations faceoff. Remember, there were like 3 fights in the first period of that game? One of them was Colton, and he handled JT Miller. So I like that. Like I'd like to see some of that on this team. I know that he's a stay-at-home defenseman. He's got 1 goal in the year, 14 points. I don't give a shit. He's an ice eater. He's still playing like 20 minutes or so. Now he's 32 years old. He's still signed. I think he's still got 4
31,
years left.
I think.
31?
I think so.
Okay. Well, he's still got 4 years left on his contract after this year.
Yep.
So, and again, it's not cheap. But my issue is, and let me say this about the player too. It's unfair to him right now. I think if you got a no trade clause, you earned that. That's in your contract. You should have the right to at least think about it. And it's possible, Drager and then other people after that, they reported this. Maybe he wasn't told or he hasn't really had time to think yet. I would think, and I would respect the process that comes with it, that, hey, man, maybe this guy wants to do a little bit of digging before he spends the next 4 or 5 years of his life living somewhere. Let's do a little homework on the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, I don't know. How much does he know about the city of Buffalo? How much does he know about this organization? Is there a guy or two in the Sabres locker room that he might want to talk to and kind of pick up the vibe a little bit? What's my role going to be on this team? You know what I mean? If he wants to take at least a little bit of time and kind of, mull over stuff like that, I don't really have beef with that. He's going to come across as a huge villain. And it is going to make you wonder. If he ultimately does say, no, I'm not coming here, and people are listening to this, Steve, sometime on Thursday, and he doesn't come here, he doesn't waive the no trade, it's going to come off kind of as a prick, and it's going to make you wonder, like, why wouldn't you want to be here? From his perspective, again, he's not a young chicken anymore. I mean, he's not old, but he's not a kid. He could come to an organization that he doesn't have to play 25 minutes. He doesn't have to be that top line guy every night. Not as much pressure. He could blend in, part of a team. He doesn't have to come carry, an entire defense, and he won't. Not on this team. You know what I mean? So he's got that working for him. And then you're like, well, this is a team that's good. Like they're on the run. We're going to talk about the team in a minute here, but this is a team that's good. They're probably going to the playoffs, and they look like they're ascending right now. God, man, did you watch that Vegas game last night? Like I'd say, yo, go watch that Vegas game on Tuesday night. So it would surprise me. I would struggle with a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit of our own Buffalo insecurities. Like why don't they want us? Like Will Smith and Fresh Prince. Like why don't my dad want me? Yeah, why don't you want me, man?
Yeah.
I can see that situation. And then the last thing I'm going to say, and this is the one thing that's pissing me off already about fans. Yo, you want a guy who's going to be aggressive? Yarmo's going to be aggressive, going to make aggressive moves. But no, I want to be aggressive, but no, not that kind of aggressive.
Right.
I don't want that. I'm sure if you've had your eyes on social media or if you've talked to people, there's a good amount of fans saying, no, it's too much. I don't want it.
Do I have a price?
Yeah. He's being aggressive. Take swings. Yeah. I mean,
you got to give to get. And, especially when they're in the position of buying, you don't want to trade anybody that's playing. Like, I would not mind a Jack Quinn trade, but I'm convinced you have to sweeten the deal to get a team to take him. But, like, other than that, you're not people talking about trading Power and trading. You're buying for a playoff run. Trading Owen Power is not buying.
Josh Norris was very much in that too.
Correct. Same thing. Like, Norris is going to be so key if they're going to be good in the playoffs. So I wonder, you said something, Pat. He doesn't have to have the pressure of playing 25 minutes a night. Is that part of the reason he might not be interested in coming here? Maybe he still got some pride at 32 years old. Hey, I'm not a third-line defenseman. I'm not a third-pair D guy. I understand that this is going to be a playoff run, but I'm not a rental either. Like, I'm around for 4 or 5 years. I am not going to a team to play 12 minutes a night on the third pair. I'm too good for that. I don't know. This is just me spitballing because 32 is not that old, especially for a defenseman. He probably wants to be. You're saying he doesn't have to be the guy. Maybe he wants to be. Maybe he wants to be featured more. I don't know. Well, you mentioned something about salary retained. I am 99.9% sure that a team can retain a percentage of salary up to 50%, but it's for the remainder of the term. So if the Blues agree to keep 30% of Parayko's salary, they're keeping 30% all the way to the end of his deal. And for the next 5 years, that might not be attractive to them. Maybe they wouldn't mind eating some salary this year because this year is a loss for them anyway. But they don't want to be paying 30% of his salary in 2029 or 2030. And that's everyone's like, oh, I hope the Blues are retaining money. When there's 4 or 5 years left on the deal, retaining money in the NHL is a huge commitment from the team that's trading the player away because you're still signed on the dotted line for essentially dead money until the end of the contract. That's one of the things that is interesting or different about NHL contracts versus NFL contracts. I said very intentionally when we first started, a player like Parayko is exactly the kind of player I want them to add because the fact that Parayko has this full no trade clause, the longer this goes, Pat, the less likely I feel like it is to happen because Mackenzie Weegar had to waive his no trade clause to go from Calgary to Utah. And it happened pretty quickly. Like the rumors were swirling about Weegar. And I was actually sitting down eating dinner with my family. And it came across the no trade clause is waived. We're a go. This is happening. And the longer this goes, the more it feels like it's not going to happen. So I hope that Jarmo is able to find another defenseman like Parayko to add. And the other thing, when you say, why don't they want us or whatever, man, right away to me goes to Antonio Brown. That deal was done. It was late night Twitter. I don't remember how late it was, but I remember it was pretty late at night.
Yeah,
and we got the rumors that Antonio Brown was coming to Buffalo, and it's like, oh shit! Like probably the biggest name or thing to happen since T.O. signed, right? Yeah, that was a big deal the day that Terrell Owens signed with the Bills. It felt huge, and then you end up with this huge letdown because you didn't get him. Here's what's different, though, and this is odd to say. At the time, the Bills were trying to build up to become a winner, and it was disappointing because it felt like AB was going to get them over the hump. I think there's a little bit, maybe rightfully or wrongfully so, that's like, hey, if this guy doesn't want to come here, fuck him. We're going to make the playoffs without him, and we're going to try to find someone else. And I don't know that the Sabres should have the cojones to do that right now, but I think there's got to be some of that because they're doing it without him right now anyway. This isn't a guy to help, get him over the hump like when they added Riley Stillman a few years ago to try to make the playoffs. This is a guy that they need, whomever it is, to make a run. And if Alex Tuck's words are still ringing in your ears, not to make the playoffs, not to win a round, to go compete for the Stanley Cup. So maybe some Sabres fans are like, you know what? You don't want to come along for the ride? We don't need you.
Adam J. in the live chat said, I doubt the trade would have been made before they got his approval to come to Buffalo. It's absolutely not the case right now. In fact, I feel like there's been enough reporting from credible reporters. The trade in principle is agreed to. We just discussed what salary retention may or may not be. Whatever it is, if there is any, I feel like that's been agreed on. Mm-hmm. This trade has been agreed to.
The terms are, I believe, locked.
The terms have been agreed to, I should say, yes. It is completely up to, does he want to come to Buffalo? That's it, and we don't know. I tend to agree with you. I'm also careful because Thursday morning we may look up and be dummies. Even, hey, he's a Buffalo Sabre now. He was making arrangements, whatever the arrangements were. Maybe that's why he took the night, because he was figuring out living arrangements. Again, these are human beings. There's other aspects to it besides just going on the ice and playing a game. So we'll wait. We'll see. Last question real quick about this topic. So the price is going to be, if it happens, again, your top draft pick this past year. What was he, like a top dozen pick, something like that?
Yeah.
And a future first, which it feels weird to say with the Sabres, it's not going to be a top 10 to 12 pick this year. Who knows where it's going to be?
Not a lottery pick.
Yeah. So that's the price for the defenseman. It makes me wonder if they were going to get Thomas too. Like, if they wanted both guys, I think that was the goal.
Yeah.
Again, Jarmo being really aggressive. What would it have cost additionally? Like, I'm thinking for sure Hellenius, for sure another first rounder, and Power, which the Sabres weren't and shouldn't do. Well, I shouldn't say shouldn't, though, if you throw Robert Thomas in there. But the Sabres didn't want to do that. We know that. Or maybe if not Power, maybe it was Norris, Hellenius, and a first to have Thomas in there too. God, that would have been That would have been one of the all-time biggest trades the Sabres have ever made, actually, if that would have happened. How wild was Tuesday once social media got lit up on the possibility that this was in the works and that they were pretty far down the road, as NHL insiders were saying. Like I said, I don't know much about the defense, but I had to kind of look him up. I know plenty about Robert Thomas.
It's just exciting to be in this spot, Pat. Like, they've been buyers in the last, during the drought, they've been buyers a couple times, but it's always been to try to make it or just to shore up an injured position or whatever. They're buyers now to make a run, not only because they're in the position, but that's their mentality. When you're trading not for a rental or you're trading for neither one of these guys are rentals. These are guys that you're trying to build up your franchise with. It's exciting to be in this spot that not only, if they were trying to trade for Robert Thomas 2 years ago, I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you leveraging anything to try to get this player? A player like him 2 years ago made no sense. Now, not only does it make sense, but the prospect of it is exciting. It shows we have a GM that has balls. It shows that we are in the mix for some big name players. For how many years were the Bills never even a thought for a free agent? Like, when Mario Williams signed here, it was awesome because you never would have thought a player like that would be willing to play in Buffalo. You're at a point now where the Sabres are players trying to add significant pieces at the deadline, which is super exciting. The deal must have been huge, Pat. I can only imagine Murtka 2 first, Hellenius, Roseanne maybe, plus a piece like Power. One of the things that was reported, though, is that the Blues wanted players to help them now, and that could have been what made it fall through, that the price they were asking wasn't prospects and picks so much as it was impact players now. And Jarmo, and I have no clue, Jarmo might have looked at that and said, no, I can't give you players now because I need my now players now. I'm not giving you players to make your team better right now because I need as many of those players like Alex Tuck, who we keep saying is their rental for the playoff run. He would be a great trade bait if they didn't need him or want him for the run. But of course they want him for the run. So that could have been where the disconnect happened. It would have been a huge, huge, huge deal, I can only imagine. But part of me is relieved that Jarmo stuck to his guns if that's what happened, not to give up Power, not to give up Norris, certainly not giving up Tuck or whatever. You know that those names had to be coming from St. Louis, right? Those names had to be what they were talking about, especially if the rumor is true that they wanted players that would help their team now. So it's exciting to be in a spot where we can say no to teams. No, you can't have that guy because we need him. And it's exciting to be in the mix for two of the biggest names that would be traded. Like right now, Mackenzie Weegar's the biggest name that's been traded, I think. And Thomas and Parayko would be as big as or bigger than that. So we'll see. Still got a lot of time before, recording Wednesday night before the deadline Friday at 3 p.m. But it's just fun to be in the mix for guys like this and to be called the front runner for Robert Thomas. Who would have seen that coming as recently as December?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because I'm kind of looking at you with my left eye in the camera, and I got my right eye on my tweet deck just in case something goes down with that or something else. Before we get to a break, real quick, I want to pull up a couple comments. Ralph Wilson Sr. says, wouldn't give up Merca for a sixth defenseman. I don't agree. Listen, Ralph Wilson Sr. literally is amongst my favorite three people who watch the show on YouTube and, check out the streams and comment all the time. I don't like that take, though, Ralph. I got to be honest with you, man. This is a different team. A year ago, fuck no. Now, you're trying to win. Yeah. And if you're going to win, you want established veterans to win now, you got to give up future pieces.
You hope Merca turns into Parayko.
Sure.
You're hoping right now Merca turns into a player like Parayko. The problem is Parayko's 32.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. I'd rather keep the younger player in certain situations. But right now, you're trying to get to the playoffs, and you're trying to do some damage in the playoffs. So I don't agree with that, man. You got to give up something to get something, or at least most of the time you do anyway. Steve Noble said, he's got a question for you, actually. He says, Parayko's salary is $6.35 million next year to $4.8 million in the last 3 years. Are those numbers what goes against their cap, or is it the $6.5 million number?
Average annual value is what a contract counts as in the NHL for any team. So if the average value of his contract is $5 million a year, it doesn't matter that he's making 6.8 this year and 3.9 next year. He counts $5 million a year against the cap, and whatever is retained is 30% of that. I could be completely wrong, but I would bet some money that that's how it goes because in my brain, that's where it exists. So it's average annual value, and retained salary only goes against average annual value. So that's why a player that's making $10 million a year, but their last 3 years of their contract is only $3 million. That's the physical money they get paid, but they still count against the cap for $10 million a year. Average annual value is king in the NHL.
As we get to a quick on the video side, it's literally going to be a 5-second break for everybody who's watching. As we get to that, I am ecstatic about it, but shocked that we are, so tomorrow's going to be Thursday, 5 days away from the start of tampering period, which is essentially NFL free agency. And we are talking Sabres. Not only are we talking Sabres, bro, we're talking Sabres. We're about to go to a break. And we're going to come out of the break, and we're going to talk more Sabres before we even get to the Buffalo Bills. That shit is wild. But you know what, dudes? I'm with it, man. I'm with it. So we'll be literally right back. Back with Steve Bermel. Adams J1212 in the live says, let me pull it up for you. Adams built this team and won't get any credit for it. I mean, come on, we talk about this all the time now. I think he's getting his just due. I just had Joe Yerdon on a couple nights ago, guys. And if you didn't watch that show, if you're a hockey fan, you definitely should listen to that. And one of the questions I asked Joe straight up, I was like, look, some people are saying Kevin Adams should win Executive of the Year. That shit ain't going to happen. All right, because you can also make the case, and I don't want to get into Kevin Adams, this whole, 15-minute segment with him, but I will say, and I'll kind of reiterate this again. Yeah, he does deserve credit for putting his team together, personnel-wise. No question about it. But leadership matters. Other things matter, too. And literally the second this team got wind that he was gone, they started playing good. Mm-hmm. Like, you could have a team of the same players, and they're underachievers. And then suddenly they're not underachievers anymore. That light flip switch or just went off when Kevin Adams got fired. But anyway, to the point, Joe think it's possible he might earn himself another high-end executive job at some point based on what he's done with this roster. That probably would be the best thing that could happen for Kevin Adams in his career. But I don't want to talk about Kevin Adams. I want to talk about this this team right now. And the trade rumors, they got to be addressed because it was a deal that we thought was done and it's not, and we'll see how that plays out. But regardless of that, let's rewind back one day further. Absolute electric atmosphere at KeyBank Center on Tuesday night, man. Even the TV crowd, not being at the arena, just watching on TV, chills. The crowd, the enthusiasm, the TNT towels, the white towels. It reminded me like the Sabres are going to be in a playoff game. I'm imagining the Sabres in a playoff. It was a playoff atmosphere against a playoff caliber opponent. And it's funny because I told you at the beginning of the show, Steve, I said, I haven't really written anything down. One of the few things I did write down, because this was about Robert Thomas, like, would he waive the no trade? And I said literally, and I quote, and I tweeted this out after the game Tuesday night too. I said, if you're a veteran and that game doesn't make you want to waive your no trade, I think you're a fool. I really do. But anyway, just talk about the vibe at that game. Tage was on her beforehand. That was awesome. Brings out Jack. He gets cheered. Good on the Sabres fans. And then he got booed. Good on the Sabres fans when the game started. Tage scores. They get up 3-0. I get a text from Steve Bermel saying this team's a fucking wagon. And then I don't hear anything after that because they had to hold on for dear life. Vegas scores twice. But end of the day, last thing, as I'm fucking yapping here, but I was watching it at Imperial with my good buddy Mike. And I told him it was 3-2. There was still 5 minutes left. And Vegas was starting to get they were swarming. I was like, I'll bet you right now. What do you want to bet me that Vegas ties this game up? I would have bet anything that they did. And they did. Sabres win 3-2. Talk about this night. This is a showcase game for the Sabres this season. And if you're a veteran out there with 2 days to go with no trade, go watch that freaking tape. Awesome experience. Awesome night, wasn't it?
First and foremost, full marks to the Sabres for that ceremony. They've had some questionable things in the past when they've honored, whether it's jerseys or name spellings. But once again, we'll digress on the past. They did it right. Like Tage said afterward, I don't know if you saw, Pat, he didn't know his family was coming out on the ice. They surprised him with that. Awesome. Darlene was telling the guys, or hearing from the guys on the bench, that like 10 guys were like, I'm ready to run through a wall. The game hadn't started yet. And guys who are not American, guys who didn't win gold medals, were like, I could run through a brick wall right now. So what they did with the ceremony was epic. It was classy. It was well done. Like, that was good. And then they dropped the puck. My wife's cousin was there, and I talked to him during all the Sabres games, and he's like, this place is electric. And he's a huge Sabres fan, always has been. We haven't had it for so long, and the energy, the players talked about it after the game, how it felt like playoff energy. Lindy said he told him the rally towels on the seats reminded him of before a playoff game when the fans were going to come in and start spinning them over their head. They jump out to the lead. I was super nervous because I watched the Vegas game on, what day was it? Sunday? I don't know. Yeah, Sunday they played in the afternoon, and they just played like shit against Pittsburgh. And I'm like, man, another East team beating up on the West team. I said, they better not come to Buffalo and decide they're going to fucking play, because they look like shit against Pittsburgh. Yep. Well, thankfully for Buffalo, they played better, but had a lot of bad luck. Hit a bunch of posts, couldn't quite cash in early and whatever. But, the 3-0 lead, I texted you as soon as Tage scored. And I was nervous I was going to have to eat those words. And Pat, for how many years during this drought, not only would they have let Vegas tie it, but would they have lost that game?
100%. I'm still trained that way. Like, I was literally expecting that.
So then they hold on and beat them. You jump out to the 3-0 lead. You score early on them. You get a bunch more or a couple more. You have that 3-0 lead. All of a sudden, things start to go a little awry, but they tighten up. They play responsibly. They just played a good defensive game, and Alex Lyon was very good, of course. And they locked it down, which sometimes you have to do. And people complain, they always blow a lead, whatever. But they're locking it down this year, and the blown leads aren't resulting in losses. So they hang on to win. They get the big 2 points, 4 wins in a row. They're all talking about how this is just a stepping stone. Like, they're not excited about it. Like, Alex Lyon's like, the work is just getting started. Tage said when he was handing the belt off, let's get another one, boys. We're not done yet. Yeah. Like this attitude of like workmanlike, we're still not finished. And maybe, Pat, the biggest news of all, the Sabres game ends. Minnesota shit pumps Tampa 5-1. And San Jose beats
Mm-hmm.
Montreal 7-5. So two Western Conference teams not only beat the Eastern Conference teams, but they do it in regulation. I don't know what kind of voodoo magic was going on last night, but I feel like it was the best results the Sabres had happen around them in such a long time. And I believe at last check, they're 8 points clear of Columbus, who would be essentially the last team to catch. So they're 8 points clear of falling out of a playoff spot right now, but they got some help. Tampa's only 2 points in front of them. Montreal stays in the rearview mirror. And what a great night it ended up being, not just because the Sabres won, they finally got some fucking help.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking, I'm scoreboard watching as you were talking. Detroit's playing the same Vegas team we've been talking about. They're 3-3 late in the third period, which Detroit is 2 points behind Buffalo as we're recording this for second place. It's just wild to me that if the playoffs started tomorrow, the Buffalo Sabres would be hosting the Detroit Red Wings. Oh my God, the vibes. And you know another thing about this team that's remarkable, besides, I mean, the fact that they're winning and all that, of course, is they're so good at home now. They're 18-8-3 at home this season. And if you remember back a couple years ago, a handful of years ago, when they almost made the playoffs, they had a good season. They had 91 points. The only reason why they didn't make the playoffs that year, they were, what is it? I want to make sure I get this right. They were 17-20-4. They had a losing record at home, even when they almost made the playoffs. This year, they're way over 500 at home. I want to Steve Noble.
And on the road. I mean, those splits are good on the road, too.
Sure. Steve Noble said it stinks losing Merck if the deal happens, but realistically, the Sabres have too many skilled prospects and no spots available for them to grow into. I agree. Good take. We really don't have nothing to add. Like I said, we kind of talked about that before. I just want to make sure I get some of these comments in. A Barber 9. They are battle tested probably more than most teams because they know what it takes to win after so many years of negativity. I don't know if they know what it takes to win, but they're learning right now. That's for sure. You know, maybe the pace that they're on right now, again, they're 4-0 coming off the Olympic break, which just stuns me. I was very concerned about that.
And they limped into the break.
Yes.
Had me nervous.
Yeah. Maybe this pace feels maybe a little bit fluky. I don't know. But here's the deal. For Robert Thomas or for any player out there who's considering, you know, if Yarrow makes a deal, I feel like this is a good hockey team, but I also feel like they're built to be good for a while. Like, I don't think this is a one-year wonder right now. You got your quote-unquote superstar players, Tage Thompson. You got two of them. Tage Thompson, Rasmus Dahlin are legit league superstars. I think you got some high-end talent in Norris, Samuelson. I'm telling you, man, Samuelson is the truth. It's crazy to say that. I don't think I've ever been more wrong about a freaking athlete over the course of 1 year than I've been about Samuelson. But those are high-end talented players. They got some young ascending talent like Benson and Doan and Oslin that are up right now, amongst others that are, you know, they're going to get better. Maybe you can add McLeod in there if you want as well. Solid blue liners. We talk about Owen Power all the time. He's solid blue liner. Byram, solid blue liner. Feels like UPL is putting his shit together. It doesn't feel like a fluke. Like, it's almost like, yeah, this team's good now, but next year they're going to be right back to where they were before. I don't think so, man. I think this team's built, dude.
The only thing that I would say, just to be contrarian, is they're getting goaltending like they haven't had. And it's two guys. So when you say it's sustainable and whatever, I mean, they're both saving goals above expected, or goals saved above expected are like top 10 in the league or whatever. They are both playing out of their skulls. And neither one of them is Patrick Roy, or Martin Brodeur. They're good, and they're playing very well. And we've seen UPL play like this. You've seen Lyon play like this too in the playoffs. He helped Florida. So I'm not saying that's not sustainable. That part of their game might not be, but I still don't think that means that they would be not in a playoff spot right now. Like, they have goalies that are helping them win games or stealing them games.
Yeah.
But they're playing. It's not Dominik Hasek making 56 saves, giving up one goal, and they win 2-1. You know what I mean? Their goaltending has been very, very good, and that might be the one part of this team that when you say they're built for long-term success, are Alex Lyon and UPL able to keep playing at this pace? Because they're both playing out of their minds, which is awesome. Maybe they are, but that is kind of the only wild card to me when you talk about like fluky or weird stats. It's just how well the goalies are playing, but they're playing complete hockey games. They're playing other than the power play, they're playing good hockey in every facet. Their penalty kill's good. The defensive core is good. The four lines roll. You know, they got to get this fucking power play figured out, but I don't want to bitch when they're winning 4 in a row and 2 points out of first place in the conference, for goodness sake.
And I do also firmly believe that if this trade doesn't work out, they're going to add to this hockey, I almost said football, they're going to add to this hockey team before Friday at 3 p.m. So if you wake up and you find out he accepted a trade, great. If he didn't waive it, they're going to add to this team. Anyway, one last thing with the Sabres, too. Adam had a question. I kind of asked Yernan this, too. It's one of those cross the bridge when we get there type questions. But for right now, let's just say the playoffs started on, what's today? Let's say the playoffs started Saturday, okay? Are we going to rotate goalies in the playoffs, or do you guys think we'll stick with one as long as he's playing good? I think I think the answer is very obvious. If a goalie starts game 1 and he plays lights out, he's going to play again in game 2. I'll kind of form that question a little bit differently, and I'll ask you, if game 1 started Saturday, Detroit or Montreal, who's between the pipes in game 1? Well, worry about game 2, 3, 4,
sure,
whatever. Who's your game 1 goaltender if the season or if the playoffs started this weekend right now? I don't know that it's an easy question. Maybe it is. I don't know. What do you think?
I think you tip the cap to the guy who's played in the playoffs. It's such a different game. Playoff hockey takes on a completely different shape than regular season hockey, and Alex Lyon's done it. He's been in the playoffs in big moments. He helped get Florida the Stanley Cup, right? He had to play when Bob was hurt. So I think you tip to Lyon. I think the answer to who plays, if you remember a couple of years ago when Boston had Swayman and Ullmark, do you remember what their coach said? Play till you lose. So he starts Swayman game 1. Swayman wins, the net's his. And they weren't upset about it. If Swayman lost game 1, then it was Ullmark game 2. If Ullmark won game 2, it was Ullmark game 3. And there's that pressure and that competitiveness, but they're not butting heads either. It's laid out there. I'm not going to play the other guy until you lose. And hell, if that means that I'm on the bench and I never get played, that means we won the Stanley Cup because we won 16 straight games. So what am I going to bitch about? That's kind of how I feel. Play till you lose. It's an easy way. It's a way to be diplomatic, right, Pat? You're also not picking favorites. You're not having it be the eye test. It's objective. If you win the game, you're between the pipes next game. You don't got to worry about back-to-backs in the playoffs. You only play every other night, maybe an extra day for travel in there, so you don't have to worry about fatigue or anything like that. But I think it's an easy solution to not piss anybody off. It's diplomatic. It makes sense to the goaltenders. It makes sense to the team. And there's no reason that it shouldn't work because, like, you mean to tell me Marty Gerber's upset for being benched by Cam Ward when he's lifting the Stanley Cup 3 weeks later? I realize that Gerber's career never really recovered, but he got a cup out of it. So when you bow out and let someone else play and it leads to a Stanley Cup, you're not going to complain. So I think that's the solution to both your question and the question that was asked.
Good point. Last thing, I mentioned this a couple days ago too as well. I'm starting to mentally prepare myself. In fact, we were doing some roster or schedule checking at the end of the season, and I hate counting, the chickens before they hatch, using that term, but this team looks like they're going to the playoffs. Let's just say that. And if they do, I think Yerden said that the playoffs would start on that Saturday, the 18th. It's Saturday, April 18th, the playoffs start. First round. We could be looking at, folks, for the first time in, 15 years? We could be looking at a potential. Whoa, we sure love the NFL draft, night 1. But guess what? The Sabres are playing hockey on night 1 of the draft. And if they're the second seed, they'd be on the road. If they're if they finished third in the division, they'd be on the road for the first 2. You might be looking at game 3, the first home Sabres game in 15 years, overlapping night 1 of the draft. I'm not going to ask you what you would do. That's fucking obvious.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be on the show anymore if you said anything otherwise. But that's going to be interesting for a lot of fans. I think there's going to be a lot of Sabre parties. I was going to say draft parties. I'll tell you what, last year I did a live show at Resurgence for Jeremy White and WGR at a draft party. I was part of that. I had a live show after. And probably doing it again, but I don't know. Because do I want to lead off talking about a wide receiver or a corner that the Bills drafted, or am I going to be talking about game 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it may be? I mean, it's a good problem to have, but that could be wild, dude, ain't it? That could be sick.
I'm relieved because we spent $11 billion to go to Disney from April 5th to the 12th or something. And normally the playoffs would have started that first week of April, like April 8th, 10th, around there. So the Olympic break pushing it back has me relieved because we'll be at Disney. I don't come home until April 13th, I think, is my first day like back to work. So I'm relieved at the later start. Yeah, fuck the draft if the Sabres are playing. I don't. I mean, the draft is exciting, but it's not even close. I'm
Dean's trading back anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope he does get more assets, especially when you're drafting late in the first round, or they're trading every pick they have for like Max Crosby or something. I don't know, but yeah,
well, let's talk about that after a break.
Yeah,
you bring up Max Crosby. You know that I've talked about this on the show. I painted a scenario on Twitter. I'll get your take on that. Quick, again, one more 5-second video break, and then we're going to switch gears for the rest of the show, and we're going to talk Buffalo Bills. Need to start here because, honestly, I thought there was going to be no chance he was going to hit the market. I thought the Colts would tag him and not Daniel Jones. I'm talking about Alec Pierce.
Yep.
And as it turns out, they put the transition tag on Daniel Jones, and Alec Pierce will hit free agency. I'm telling you this right now. I promise you this. His spot rack value is, oh man, what is it? It's $20.2 million. Okay. And when I tell you it's $20.2 million, I'm here to tell you he's going to get more than that. I expect him to get more than that in the open market. There's a lot of receiver teams that are needy. Okay. He's 26 years old. He had 1,000 yards last year, which is not really all that impressive, but 21.3 yards per catch, pretty goddamn impressive. Is 19.1 air yards, second most of anyone with at least 35 targets. Only had one drop this season, too. He's not Justin Jefferson. He's not Jamar Chase. All right, so let's not get this shit twisted, okay? But he is a legit burner and a legit deep threat with some really good hands. He's going to get paid. He is absolutely a fit for the Buffalo Bills. I can tell you that much for sure. Throw away the contract stuff. If you're talking about just fit-wise, whoo, that would be a nice ad. If you're Brandon Beane, are you taking a swing? Are you doing it, man? Are you going to take a big swing if you're Brandon Beane? Well, that's a two-part question. Should you if you're Brandon Beane? Willie. Maybe those are not the same answer for you.
No. Is Alec Pierce like Jordy Nelson? Is that a good comparison?
He's
just like a downfield deep threat kind of. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say he's a higher ceiling type player than. And you could also say, listen, he's playing with some pretty shitty quarterback. I mean, Daniel Jones was okay. You know, he was good for a bit, but you always got to have the Josh Allen factor. And holy Christ, if you think Brandon Cooks can get down the field, I'm just telling you, man. But again, you're talking maybe 23 to 26 million a year. Is that too rich? Is there a difference between being aggressive, Steve, and being reckless? And if you go after Pierce, are you being reckless and not aggressive?
That's because how much does that hamstring you the rest of the way? So we know this team has needs. It needs linebacker depth. It needs help in the secondary. It needs offensive linemen. You're telling me Connor McGovern, if they're not even considering it, man, now you need a center and a guard unless they're going to re-sign Damon Edwards, but I don't know what's going on there. But you need, it's like what I said before. Everyone's like, oh, trade for Max Crosby, draft a wide receiver, draft a punter. You don't have, there's only so much capital you have. You have 7 draft picks this year and a very limited salary cap number. I'm sure they're going to restructure and move more money. I'm surprised they haven't done it yet. You said you had a feeling there might be some big cuts or something. Man, they're just not making many moves to open up cap space yet. And so the idea of Alec Pierce just feels reckless because wasn't the estimated number that the Bills were going to get down to like $35 or $40 million in cap space if they made all the restructures and cuts that they could. Is it good asset management to then spend 60% of it on one player?
I'll say this, though, Steve, not to cut you off.
You're good.
The way football structures contracts, and Brandon Beanie's done this a lot, and it bites you in the ass eventually, but you can sign a guy and give him $28 million this year, and his first and second year cap hits will be like $4 to $6 million. You know what I mean? Now, you're going to rob Peter to pay Paul, and you're going to be still, like, for example, Matt Milano is going to cost you $11 million this year in dead cap space, and you know he's not going to be back this year. Well, you don't know, Eddie. You assume he's not going to be back, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. You're gonna pay at some point, but you could do it. You could do it and still operate.
So when I think about like the idea of edge rusher or receiver, I think you pose this question to Matt Warren, Max Crosby, or someone like Mike Evans or whatever. Let's just say for this case, Max Crosby or Alec Pierce. I love the idea of Josh having more weapons, but he still put up 30 points in a playoff game against a good defense with 5 turnovers. Like, he figures out ways. The other thing, too, is I feel like if I take names away from it, remove Max Crosby, remove Mike Evans, remove Alec Pierce, I still fully believe that the way you win in the NFL is have a quarterback, which the Bills do, and get to their quarterback, which the Bills don't. You talked about it, 43 dropbacks for Bo Nix, 0 sacks. Max Crosby is the missing factor right now. When Tampa Bay beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes ran for 200 yards behind the line of scrimmage, spent the entire game running for his life. The Chiefs scored what, like 9 points or something stupid? That's how you win in the NFL. So when I think about the shiny Alec Pierce, Mike Evans might not even be super shiny, but when I think about the sports car, Max Crosby's kind of a sports car too. I don't know. But when I think about the fancy offensive weapon, that might sound good, but I think on principle, the edge rusher makes more of an impact on this Buffalo Bills team, makes more of an impact on the playoffs. When they signed Joey Bosa, Pat, we talked right away. We're like, this is for January. This is to get to the quarterback, because they didn't get to the quarterback in the postseason 2 seasons ago. Then they get to the playoffs. They don't fucking get to the quarterback anyway with Joey Bosa on the roster. So I do think that Max Crosby or the edge rusher, if they're gonna invest in a premium player, I think I have to sign on the line for edge rusher over receiver. If that means someone like Brandon Cooks coming back, so be it.
I was going to say, let me give you the official scenario hypothetical that I've been painting for people this week, and I'm going to paint the same hypothetical for you, but you got to stick to the rules.
Yep.
I know where you're going because you kind of already laid it out, but just so everyone else who's listening is clear too. This is how the Max Crosby thing came up. I said, and I'm going to be word for word, while I want to be clear, there's almost no chance of this happening. I want to put a hypothetical out there to Bills Mafia for your review. If the Bills swung a huge trade for Max Crosby, which I will say this, Max Crosby's getting traded. He's not going to be a Vegas Raider this year. So somebody's getting him, and I sure hope it's not the New England Patriots, by the way. Yeah. Look out for that. Just be on the lookout for that. But anyway, if the Bills swung a huge trade for Max Crosby, but because they make that trade, they do nothing at wide receiver other than re-sign Brandon Cooks. And you don't have a first-round pick because you gave that up and more for Crosby. You could draft a wide receiver on day 2, a second-round or a third-round guy. So you could add Brandon Cooks back, and you could have a second- or third-round wide receiver. But that's it. That's all you're doing in the room. No Pierce, no Evans, no DJ Moore, no A.J. Brown, none of that. Just Brandon Cooks and a rookie. You're signing up for it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you, man.
I don't even hate that scenario, Pat, because I feel like the punishment for trading for Max Crosby is re-signing Brandon Cooks. Like, you're like, the only thing you can do. I feel like the punishment is re-signing Brandon Cooks, but where you sell me is the day 2 pick on a receiver, because I think they can get somebody, not a superstar stud, but I think they can get somebody on day 2 that's an impact player that has, 25, 30 catches on the year and, 600 yards or something. I don't know, that could actually be impactful in the second or third round. So I don't hate it at all. And once again, the biggest problem, the reason the Bills have failed in the playoffs against the Chiefs, again, other than the Cincinnati game when everybody sucked, they don't get home on defense. They don't put pressure on these elite quarterbacks, and that's why they ultimately lose.
We call Yarmo aggressive. We'll see how that plays out. He's certainly trying to be aggressive. We already saw what the trade could be. Will Brandon Bean be aggressive? Boy, I sure hope so. And look, Max Crosby's the guy, but you know what? I could also understand, again, I always try to say that there's aggressiveness and then there's recklessness, and I try to make sure that you don't cross that line. Maybe giving up 2 first-round picks, something else, and a player for Max Crosby, maybe you could deem that reckless, you know? But there's other players. I'll tell you who I would trade for. Jonathan Greenard, Minnesota Vikings are talking about trading him. That dude, 2 years ago with Minnesota and before that with Houston, an animal. He had 12 and a half sacks 1 year, 12 the next. That's your Benito. That's your Denver edge rusher kind of guy. Oh, I'd be really excited. And plus, the way his contract is, again, you could restructure, free up cap space early on. It doesn't have to prohibit you. As we're saying this, I'm getting mad because the thought of Brandon Bean telling us about Josh Allen's fucking contract and all this other stuff is going to end up pissing me off again. You can make these trades. I am telling you right now. Max Crosby might be too rich for your blood. Jonathan Greenard, I'm telling you, you can get that shit done.
You talk about recklessness, though, Pat, and there's GMs, including Brandon Bean, that kind of accused the Rams of being reckless. And how did that work out? They went all in, balls to the wall, and had one lean year and get right back to competing because you have an all-star quarterback and a whiz head coach and a decent defense. So
I love
recklessness is fine because you recover from it.
I love what they did on Wednesday. I also love what the Chiefs did, too. I mean, to be fair, but like the Rams gave up a first rounder, a 29th pick, and 3 other picks. They gave up 4 picks to get Trent McDuffie. And good for the Chiefs. They want to reset. They don't like paying DBs. They did it with Snead a couple years ago as well. They just don't pay him. They want draft capital. I think they're going to get Jeremiah Love. I don't think they're going to get him at 9. I think they're going to move up and they're going to get him. And I don't like that. But anyway, so I'm not saying it's a Chiefs guy. They did fine. But I love what the Rams did. They're like, you know what? We are a Super Bowl caliber team. We're in the mix. We need a great corner. We need to have a great corner. And they went and they traded and did what they got to do to go get a great corner. I really wish Brandon Bean would say, you know what? We need a wide receiver who's not Brandon Cooks. And we need an edge rusher who's not Joey Bosa because Bo Nix throws 46 passes and doesn't go to the ground once. Because the 2 years before that, Patrick Mahomes got sacked twice in the last 2 Kansas City Chiefs playoff victories over the Buffalo Bills. 2 of the last 3 years, Steve, the Bills have not had a sack, not one, in their elimination losses. They had 2 in the game 2 years ago. They had none the year before that. They had none this year as well. So anyway, before we get out of here, I kind of want to hit on something else. Tim Graham over at The Athletic, one of the very best, of course. He put out a report on Wednesday. Yeah, it is Wednesday, Steve. Jesus. Connor McGovern, like I said, he has not talked to the Bills since locker room cleanout day, exit interviews. Almost certainly done. They're going to lose him. They're probably going to lose David Edwards. I might be a little premature in assuming that that's, 100%, but it feels that way, at least to me. Offensive line, Steve, has been a position of continuity for the Bills for the past 3 years. They've been really good, and they've been consistent, and they've been healthy, not to mention Aaron Kromer is the coach. He's gone. McGovern, very likely gone. David Edwards, very well could be gone. They're going to rely on depth that they developed, which, they have a good track record with that, but not proven. These guys, is that a concern to you? The offensive line going into the season, because this has been something where you could just, like a Foreman grill with the offensive line with the Bills the last 3 years, set it and forget it. I don't know that I feel that way right now. You lose 40% of your line and your offensive line coach. Little concerned about that.
Yeah, we talked about when they were going to resign either Edwards or McGovern, how McGovern made sense because, one, a center's rapport with the quarterback, and Allen is your number one asset. And having a center that he trusts even as something as simple as a snap. How many times is a backup center to come into a game and there's a fumble because it's not snapped correctly, or it's just a different, they don't remember the cadence, they snap it early. You always see the quarterback's eyes get huge when the shotgun snap comes on the wrong count, and that type of stuff happens when the starting center isn't in the game. And I think there's so much importance to that. And the Bills have always realized that, from Eric Wood to Mitch Morse to Connor McGovern. There has been a center who has been trustworthy and has been as important to Josh Allen as maybe any other player on the team. The other thing is, people may know this, but centers are crucial in blocking schemes. Centers are setting the blocking very often for the guards and the tackles around them at the line of scrimmage. They are calling out blocks. They are calling out blocking schemes while they're over the ball. It's not that I don't trust Alec Anderson or Van Pren Granger or Vandermark or one of these guys to do that. I just don't know what experience they have. And I think playing guard, like if they would have retained McGovern and had one of the developed talents play guard, I'd be less nervous, because I think there's so much more involved to playing center. It's a much more cerebral position, in my opinion. There's a lot more football IQ, and I'm not accusing these guys of not having it. So maybe this is something that Bean does address in free agency, that he gets a center that's proven. There might be some more cut coming up here too. Like, I think Mitch Morse was a cap casualty of the Chiefs, right? And then Bean brought him in and signed him to probably a pretty fair deal because of what he made in dead cap, or what guaranteed money he got paid when he got cut by the Chiefs. So I have bigger concerns about center. It's not that I don't trust the players that they're developing to play okay. I just think center is a super important position.
John Sanders agrees with you and says Bean's always got in the center right. Well, He has to this point for sure. Yeah, it's odd to me that, and I will always believe something. If Tim Graham puts something out there, I'm going to believe it 100 out of 100 times. It's odd to me that they haven't kept a dialogue, since the season ended. And I know it's Josh's boy too. Man, I don't know. The thought of maybe losing 40% of the offensive line again, I think it's something. I think it's a part of this team that's been taken for granted. Josh Allen's one of the best. Josh Allen might be the best player in the NFL, and he would be a really good quarterback in any situation. Even the Jets. He would make the Jets better. I mean, the Jets are ass, but he'd make them better. But, man, the offensive line makes it a lot easier. You know what I mean? They've protected him really well. They run block really well for James Cook. Yeah. And, it's not that I don't like Seth Van Pren Granger. It's not that I don't like Alec Anderson. I don't like the unknown. I've liked knowing for the last 3 years that I could count on this offensive line. That scares me. So that's something to keep our eyes out on. Maybe they do sign something, but, man, I don't know. Like I said, losing one, man, you know what? And maybe I'm premature in saying David Edwards is gone. Maybe they re-sign David Edwards and Alec Anderson becomes their center, or Van Pren Granger, one of them. One of them are still depth, and you can feel a little bit better about that. But I'd really like to keep Connor McGovern, unless you're trading for Max Crosby, and you don't want to spend that money or something like that. All right, then I'm like, all right, this dude could go then. But I will say, drafting and developing. Like, if Dawson Knox does leave, it's because you develop Jackson Oz. Mm-hmm. If Connor McGovern leaves, it's because you draft and you develop Seth Van Pren Granger. If Edwards leaves, well, I don't think they drafted Anderson, but they've developed him. They've done a good job of it too. So, I guess you got to trust that kind of process. Real quick.
And if Cooks leaves, they've drafted and developed Keon Coleman. I'm just kidding. I had to put my tongue in my cheek and say that one.
A lot of Keon Coleman talk. And it's going to be that way all offseason. Until Winter gets traded, which, I put out something on Twitter. I said, if you can get a late fourth for him right now, would you trade him?
In a second. Oh, my gosh. At the snap of a finger.
It was about 90% of people said yes. Yeah, they would trade him in a late fourth for...
Matt Warren's like, well, a second or a third. I'm like, who is offering a second round pick for Keon Coleman? You better throw them a lifetime supply of wings if they offer you a second for Keon Coleman.
Late fourth, you trade him tomorrow.
100%.
If he's part of a package like Keon and a pick for something, you trade him tomorrow.
Yep.
But if you're only going to get a 6th or 7th, I think you're better off just bringing him the camp and seeing that maybe Lightning can actually strike with him. Last thing, then we'll get out of here. Stefan Diggs is going to be a
oh my God.
I know.
I knew exactly what you were saying when you texted me about this. Stefan Diggs with like question marks in it. I know exactly what you're doing. You're stirring the pot.
Even Joe from Queens, who's he's a Stefan Diggs ball washer. We'll use his term there since he loves to throw that out there. But even he didn't think it would be a good idea because we
No.
talked about the possibility. Stefan Diggs getting cut's not a problem or a surprise. I'll tell you this, though. Him getting cut, they're going to go. I'm telling you, they are going to get a legit number one wide receiver. The Bills may or may not. The Bills may get a piece. They might go get a Shaheed or a Dobbs or something like that. Don't know. Maybe they get maybe they get a number one. I don't know. I'm telling you now, New England is going to get a number one. I'll bet anybody anything they want to bet right now. Anyway, Stefan Diggs, free agent. I'm assuming it's a big thanks, but no thanks, right?
Yeah, and New England's in the same spot the Bills were when they traded for Diggs, right? They have their up-and-coming quarterback who's proven that he can play and needed somebody to help them elevate their game. And Diggs did that for Allen. As much as we dog on him now, Diggs was a great thing to happen to Josh Allen. And New England's in that spot. They have their stud QB. They need to get him some targets. Hunter Henry's great. Beyond that, I mean, it's like Demario Douglas and Keishon Boutte, and those names are just like whatever. Mm-hmm. They're not doing much. So I agree they're going to get a guy. It might be a big guy. They saved $20.8 million cutting Diggs, but he still had 2 years left on his deal, so I'm sure that they ate some dead cap. And you mentioned Diggs. Of course, it's a no thank you here, but who is going to sign him? I don't even know what he's got going on off the field with all the bullshit surrounding him. What's even happening? If somebody does sign him, you're signing on to not only the locker room drama, but now the very clear off the field drama that I don't know what it's worth. I mean, if he's able to play, if he's not suspended or arrested or something, somebody's going to take a flyer on him. But that definitely shouldn't or won't be the Bills.
I said the only scenario on earth where I could see it is if maybe we have greatly underestimated just how much Brandon Beane, a.k.a. Littlefinger, and Sean McDermott hate each other. And it's well documented and well known. You know, Stefan had some beef with other things too, but his big beef was with Sean McDermott. His big beef was with Sean McDermott. He did not like Sean McDermott. And if you want to pull the ultimate troll, you fire Sean McDermott and you bring back Stefan Diggs. The Bills are notorious for bringing back former Buffalo Bills. But yeah, in this case, which by the way,
Brandon Baelish. Call him Littlefinger, Brandon Baelish.
You know, it's not like he stinks, by the way. He had 1,000 yards receiving this year. That first game in week 5 against the Bills.
Ate up the Bills.
He absolutely ate up the Bills. I'm looking at his playoff stats. Yeah, his playoff stats they were nothing. That's the way it usually is with him. Anyway, I don't see it happening, but fun to think about. Let me ask you that. If it was purely just on-field stuff, maybe it's a different story, though. Like if he didn't strangle his chef and, all this other shit with Cardi B and
I still don't think so.
Piece of shit person.
I still don't think so. I think that he burned the bridges here, not just with the fans. I don't know what happened with him and Allen. No, I don't think so.
All right, last thing, because this probably is going to be the last time we talk before free agency starts and before things start to happen. So we'll go out and I'll ask you this. I'm going to say mine because I still got another show. But from your perspective, what are you expecting with the Buffalo Bills come next week? What's your expectation for this team? What do you see them doing?
In free agency, I think it's going to be a bunch of blue chip players. I don't think it's going to be anybody that's on a big contract. I think it's going to be fringe starters. I think it's going to be Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, or at least Jordan Poyer, right? An unknown guy that maybe comes here and flourishes, but Jordan Poyer wasn't brought here as a stud safety. He was kind of a cast off from the Browns, and I think it's going to be more guys like that. I don't expect a big splash in free agency, especially because we haven't seen many cuts. Aren't the Bills still technically over the cap right now by like $3 million?
That's good.
So I know it's all bullshit, but you know what I mean? It's not like they cleared the deck. They're not actively out here restructuring left and right, cutting left and right to clear the deck so that they can start making huge offers to Alec Pierce and whomever else is out there, Mike Evans and who's that edge rusher from Seattle or whatever. Like they're not in a position right now to go sign a $20 million free agent. I don't know that they're going to do it. I don't even think they're going to sign a player like Joey Bosa, a $10, $12 million player. I don't think they're going to do it. I think it's going to be a bunch of blue chip players. I think it's going to be quantity. We keep talking about how many starters they're going to need on defense. You need bodies. It's not going to be, it's like in the draft. You don't need your first round pick if you can trade back and get 3 more. Quantity over quote unquote quality. That's how I feel free agency is going to be. I think fans might be disappointed, but I think it's just going to be essentially subsidizing the roster. You're going to sign free agents that can plug and play, like Trey White, like Shaq Thompson, like Leonard Floyd, like those types of free agent signings.
I don't like that. Not a fan of that. I will say this, though. In terms of the cap stuff, that's going to change quick. I'm telling you. It'll probably be in one fall swoop. In one fall swoop, they're going to restructure Josh. They're going to extend. They're going to restructure Deion Dawkins. They're going to make one or two other kind of restructure type moves. They're going to cut 2 or 3 guys. They're going to be in a position to operate. I slightly disagree with you. I'm going to be a little more optimistic. I think they're going to sign one, partially because I think McGovern and Edwards are both going to walk, and they're not really spending any money on re-signing their own, like any significant money. I think they're going to get one guy who makes at least 13 to 14 million per year on each side of the ball. I think they're going to get a receiver who makes 13 to 16 million at least, and I think they better go get an edge rusher, probably via trade, because it's not a great edge market for free agency, but I think they're going to do one of each. I'll figure out.
I hope you're right. That's a lot more fun than my boring ass middle of the road blue chip subsidy.
Bro, Sabres on the rise, and they're playing good, and human relations, public opinion with Brandon Beane is not its best right now. And these fans are kind of frustrated, and because it kind of feels almost like they're going to take a step back. You know what I mean? We'll talk about this
that last year too, though.
Yeah, it did. That's fair. But we kind of had that feeling again. Well, sooner or later it's going to happen, right? But I kind of feel like there's an edginess to fans, a little like borderline pessimism that Brandon Beane's the guy, that he deserved to keep his job, that he should not have went with Sean McDermott. So for him to, I think pressure's on, and I think if his big move is signing a Brandon Cook type-ish wide receiver and a Leonard Floyd type-ish edge rusher, it's not going to be pretty. Now, maybe it don't matter. You know, Kevin Adams held on for years, and everyone in the world wanted his ass fired, and Terry Bagula's like, no, fuck you, man. You know what I mean? So we'll see. But anyway, all right, let's put a wrap on this. We'll be talking soon, I'm sure, anyway. Make sure you follow Steve on Twitter at Steve Bermel. Again, man, John Sanders did predict, I got to throw this out there real quick, Wyatt Teller incoming. I wouldn't hate that. I don't think I would hate it. We'll see. Anyway, all right. Thank you. Big thanks to Steve, and of course, everybody who's watching. I appreciate you, man. This was really good. I love being able to call up on you. And like I said, I know you can carry football, carry hockey. If we would have got to the Bandits, maybe we will next time. We'll talk about them more as well. But I appreciate you, man, as always, man.
Man, gassing me up. I owe you double for this week.
All right, guys. Thank you as well for watching the show, for listening. One more show to come, at least. Man, I don't know. Maybe we'll have an Emerger pod, too. Something goes on with the Sabres. But regardless, talk to you guys again tomorrow.